Hello again. In this video, I'm going to show you the meaning of variables and constants, and we're going to get our hands dirty with code. One thing you need to know that it is almost impossible to gain proficiency in any programming language without first learning some of the basic things you need to know, like variable, constants, um, array, functions. It's almost impossible. Once you are able to get uh, those basics right, then you are good to go. You will be able to develop very complex applications. Even the most developers as well, like gamers, video game developers, they make use of these variables and constants. It is very essential. You must know how to. You must learn it like the back of your hand. Okay, what is actually a C# variables? Basically, C# variables are essential location in computer memory that are reserved for storing the data used by an application. For instance, when you launch an application, that application will be loaded on your RAM. That is, will be executed on your RAM. That is why if you have many applications running at the same time, probably on your phone or on the laptop, you will notice that if the RAM is not that powerful, it's not that high, like 8 gig, 16 gig, and 32 gig RAM, your system or your phone may drag, as in it will slow down a bit. That is because each program you launch will execute on the RAM, and anytime you execute something or you press something on those programs, that information will be stored on the RAM. And that is why when you close the application, you won't be able to retrieve it. You have to start all over again or things like that. So that is the essence of variables. So variables stores information on the RAM or memory precisely. When it stores that information in computer memory, anytime the application exits or you close the application, that variable will exit or will be destroyed. So that is the essence of variable. So if you now want to retain that variable, you want to work, maybe you want computer to remember that variable, you need to store that variable inside a file or database. So I'm going to be showing you all the necessary thing you need to know very shortly. Now, example of variables are integer, interest rate, and I'm going to show you. So I display username string, username equals Afolabi, and things like that. Okay, what I'm going to do now is, before we continue with this slide, I will hop over to my desktop and launch Visual Studio 2019. Visual Studio 2019, or you can, if you want it here, something like this, because I always run Visual Studio virtually every day, so I want to be easily accessible. You can right click and pin to taskbar to be here so they can launch immediately. Okay, so I'm going to launch it from here. I'll click Visual Studio and that icon to launch Visual Studio. Now these are my projects and all that getting started. You can clone, you can use. If you don't see this, that means you've not been able to set up or sign into your account. By default, all this will be blank if you are using it for the first time, open recent. But what I want to do basically now, I want to create a new project, which is extremely easy to use. Or you can create without code, whichever we want it to be, but I'm going to click create a new project. Now there are several projects you can create. You can create a TypeScript project, C#, Java, Python, and you can even install more language here based on the components you selected when you were trying to install C#. Okay, so I'm going to select C# because that is what we want to use. If you are dealing with web, we can, with front end, we talk about HTML and all that much later. Okay, so the platform is going to be web, or can say a platform. Then I'm going to select web. Now the one we will be using is going to be core ASP.NET Web Core, but for this purpose I want to use ASP.NET Web Application because this is much easier to learn than the the ASP.NET Core web application, but it's pretty much the same thing. I'll select this ASP.NET web application. I'm going to click next. Okay, so the project name, I'll call it lesson 1 variables. No, lesson 1. Okay, let's just call it lesson 1. Now, the next thing you need to do is to set the location. That is, where do you want this project or application to be stored on your computer? To do that, currently we have it here, C#, C user above. I don't want it to be stored here. I want it to be stored somewhere else. So I'm going to click this Smart Tag button and go to my documents. I want, by default, when you install Visual Studio, automatically Visual Studio will create a folder on your documents like this: Visual Studio 28, 2013, 20. So since I'm using Visual Studio 2019, and if you're using Visual Studio Code, you can store it here, but I'm going to be dealing with this one for now. And I want to create a new tab. I want to call this tab web application projects, so that it will be very easy for me to get that done easily. So I'm going to select this and select the folder, or you can double click to select the folder. Okay, if you like, you can create more subfolder, but I'll stick to it this way and click select folder. Okay, so it will be web application project lesson 1. The solution name will be lesson 1. Place solution and project in the same directory. That is, if you want it to be, let me show you a simple example here. Let me go to my browser. Now, notice that this end scroll, if you click on it, you have it like this. This solution can be placed inside this place. That is what it's trying to tell you. But I think I prefer it like this, to be separate. So place solution and project in the same directory. So I prefer it this way anyway. So if you like, you can select this and everything will work fine. No, so the next thing that is very important is to select the framework. This framework determines what will run on your system. Don't worry about this, because we're going to be dealing with more of core ASP and ASP.NET Core. But you can select the latest version. You can select 4.7, but don't let it go beyond 6.1 or 6.2. So I'm using 4.7.2. I'm going to click create to create my project. Everything will be set up for me. Now the next thing I need to check now, after that, I can say I want to develop an empty project. I want to develop a WebForm application. I want to develop an MVC application. The reason why I'm showing you this is because I want you to have a basic knowledge about previous version. So by the time we go to the .NET Core, you will be able to grasp what I'm trying to say, and you'll be able to work with other applications as well, like WebForm, like Windows Form, things like that. That's why I'm choosing this now. So you can choose WebMT, you can choose WebForm, you can choose MVC, Web API if you want to develop API, single project application. But for this purpose, I'm going to select WebForm, because I prefer WebForm to, of course, you can select empty project. So this WebForm, you have a basic template that has been designed for you. Of course, later we're going to be dealing with this empty project as well. Maybe we should start with empty project so that you see how it works. So with this empty project, that means you need to configure everything all by yourself. Okay, I think I don't have any problem with that. Or better still, let's go with this so that you can see something that this app is coming up good. Now, authentication means you want people to be able to log in to the website. You want them to sign up. You want them to get authorized before they can view a particular page. But we don't need that for now. So I'm going to, let me click this change so that you see how it works. So you can either select no authentication, that is, just come to my website, do whatever you have to do and go. individual user account. That is, people, you want users to be able to get authorized before they can use the application in a way. So then the next one is school account and Windows authentication. This one needs Windows to be authenticated before they can, so they will have access to use the application. So I'm going to select no authentication for now. Now add folder and call references. So I'm going to select only this. I don't need this. We are not going to be dealing with MVC. We're not going to be dealing with, for now, we're not going to be dealing with web API. In week 14, we'll be dealing with web API, and we can always add it anytime, any day. So another thing you need to do is configure for HTTPS. That is, if you don't set this on, it's going to run as if you have SSL, secure server layout, installed. But I'm going to deselect that because I don't need that for now. It's just a simple variable program. I'll click create and wait for Visual Studio to create my application, which is extremely easy for this to create my application. Let's wait for, now I have my application created. The reason why it's taking some time is it may take up to like 1 or 2 minutes on your own machine, because of depending on the kind of machine you're using. But you should be able to see something like this. Now this is the general overview. This is my development environment, and this is just an overview what you will learn. If you want to learn more about programming and all that, Azure, I don't need this for now. I'm going to close this. Now let's talk about the general overview of Visual Studio. Depending on your configuration, this is my own environment. You can decide to change yours. Your own might be different from this. This is Server Explorer. Let me shut down everything now so that I'll show you how you can go about it. Solution Explorer, Theme Explorer, Properties. I'm going to shut down everything now. Okay, so let's suppose you don't have anything on board now. What I want to do is I want to bring on board all those things and explain all this information. Now the Solution Explorer, which is this, is like your folder on the system. And let's take a look at this. If you go to Visual Studio 2019 and Web Application Lesson 1, Lesson, you will notice that what we have here is exactly the same thing as what we have here. So instead of you to come to like using Visual Code, you need to come here and things like that. So instead of you coming here every time, Solution Explorer simplify everything for you, so you can easily see your folder here without going through the subfolder here. If I want to see my landing page, I can double click. If I double click, it will show here. So it will show, once you double click, it will show here, or you can right click and select open code, view code, things like that. You can even view in browser directly. So that is it. Now another thing you need to get from view is that you can add, I'm looking for toolbox. There we go, toolbox. With toolbox, because we are using WebForm, we are not going to use WebForm for this project actually, but I just want to give you a view of this, and it's very easy. I don't want to scare you with a lot of hard codes or complex codes, rather. I don't want to scare you, so that's why I want to use something very familiar so that you'll be able to grasp it. Now with this, we have A tags, we have P tags. I'm going to be explaining all this as well. P tags and A tag. Now I can easily get all those tags from here. Let's say I want to add image to the system. I can easily add image here to my page and drop it. Just drop it here. That's cool. And you keep adding other tags or anchor to it, things like that. So I just want to explain that so that I won't waste much time on this. So that's the Solution Explorer. Then one other thing we need to bring on board is the We don't need that solution explorer. Server Explorer. I'm not going to bring Server Explorer on board now. Server Explorer deals with the database where you want to, if you want to connect to your database, you can connect to database from here. And for that's for Server Explorer. I'm looking for properties. Okay, other windows. There are other windows you need to property manager. If you click property manager, you will be able to see the no, this is property. I'm looking for properties. Properties. Oh, okay. So one other thing I need to get is properties window. This. So with this properties window, I will be able to see each file's property and each column property. For instance, this image now has all of these properties that you can modify to suit your needs. So for instance, if I want to add image to this property now, I can either add it directly from here, or I can scroll to source and add it from here. So I can click and go to fonts. Let's say if I have any image attached here. I don't think I have an image, so let's quickly upload an image. I can select and add. Folder. I want to add a new folder called images, and inside this folder I can quickly go to my browser and go to images folder, pictures. Let me copy this teacher, copy and paste it here. Oops. Select and paste. So automatically it will come here. So if I want to reference this, I can then reference it directly here, or I can reference it from the source here. I can select and images, teach. Pretty cool. So that's how to reference. Now, don't let us derail too much, because we really want to talk about variables. Now, for me to talk about variables, I need to do one thing. I want to go to the back end. This is design view. This is what user will see. Okay. And for me to go to the back end, I need to bring in this toolbox. I want to bring in a tool called button. This tool will allow you to click on a particular, let's say user want to submit. So let me type submit now. So that's the name that will come out. So for me to write code on integer, like the one I showed you, I'm going to write something like this on click. When user click this, it will send to server. I want to create an event. I will explain all this in week 2 or thereabouts. Okay, so what I want to do basically is I want to declare a variable just like the one we have here. What is a constant and all that. And I think I've talked about variables. Okay, so I want to declare variables. To declare a variable, it is very, very easy. You can either declare it here within the scope of class, and you can declare it within the scope of this button. I'll explain all that. Integer variable. So the name of the variable should be my number. That's how to declare a variable. Now this variable, now what I want to do is I want anybody all over the world, when they see this, to be able to read and understand this program. So I'm going to use a comment for that. This is an integer. Now the meaning of this comment is that when our code is running, when you execute this application, it will run from here to this place, and anytime your compiler sees something like this, double quotes, double forward slash, anything after this will not be executed. So it will treat it as, oh, this person is just trying to explain what he wrote here. So it will just keep that aspect. So this is an integer but not assigned. Now, what I mean by but not assigned is that this integer is like a bucket of water, and is empty, no water inside. Or like you have a box and that box is empty. So it is exactly like if you define it like this, that is your bucket. Now, for you to fill this integer, you can make it 20. You can say this integer equals 30. That is how to declare integer, and it is variable. That is, you can decide to alter it anytime. Maybe you've already done it this way, and you add other things to the website, and you now want to change it integer. You now want to change it like my number equals is now equals to 50 or 34. It is that's why they call it variable. You can always remove what you put inside that integer and replace it with something else. Okay, another thing you need to understand about integer is that I'm going to show that to you very shortly. Now let's talk about constant. To declare constant integer, or let's say double db double pi, pie chart, pi in mathematics equals 3.143 or something. What we are trying to do here is to tell this pi that is constant anytime, any day. So anybody that wants to use this constant cannot change it. For instance, you can't come here and say pi equals 4.7. It's not going to work because it has been declared constant. That's why it's showing you this, the left hand side of this variable property index, something of that nature. So it has been declared like this. So you can't use it. You can't add to it, as in it's like filled up buckets. But I can do it like this. I'm going to cut off this. I can remove this and set multiply by pi. I'm going to explain all this later. So if I do it like this, if I write it like this, it's telling you that, oh, bros, what we are trying to say is that this double cannot be assigned, cannot be put inside number, because integer can only accept a whole number and not decimal number. So if you want to solve this problem now, we can say, oh, this thing cannot implicitly convert double to integer. So to do that, you can change this to double and the error will go away. So that's how to declare constant and integer. Now the next thing I want to do basically is let's go back to our slide and talk about this. So variable are essential location in computer memory that are reserved for storing data used by application. I think we've talked about this. So a constant is similar to a variable in that it provides a name location in memory to store a data value. So constant differ in one significant way in that once a value has been assigned to a constant, it cannot subsequently be changed. Okay, yeah. So the next thing is integer variables, and integer variable is perhaps the most widely used variable types in the integer. So we have about 6 different types of integer. We have, is it 6 or 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 different types of integer. We have bytes. Now this thing is very essential. The reason why I'm showing you this is not because I want you to I want to bore you with all this information. Rather, I want you to understand why, if you use this, the amount of memory it will take from your RAM. That is why I'm showing you all this. So there are different types of variable. We have bytes. Byte can only store 0 to 255. S byte can only store -128 to 127 file or numbers rather. Short can store this, U short can store this, integer can store about 2 billion, minus 2 billion to 2 billion numbers. That is, up to this numbers you can store inside integer. On int, the meaning of on int is that I don't want this to go to negative. I want it to start from 0 to 4 billion, things like that. Then long, this one will be like quadrillion or something, trillion something. So that is how to declare it. Now let's go back to our code and declare each of these things so that you get the idea. So you can declare s byte as my byte. You can give it any name, just give it any name, just like the same way you call your computer, your name, your pad, anything, just give it any name. But one thing, rule number one is that if you are naming your variables, make sure you don't put a space. Let's say this is my byte now. Byte it must not have a space. You can't start it with numbers, and you can't number one, no space. Number two, you can't start with numbers, and the last one, you can't add symbol. Okay, so now if you want to add, you can always start like this, my 4 bytes, something like that. It's acceptable, but you can't start with 3. You can't start with number, you can't start with number, you can't use symbol and all that. Okay, so from here now, this is my byte. You can declare your bytes as well. So you should know that by now, if you want to use small volume, you can use bytes, s bytes, sorry, my little bytes. So yeah, I can't make this one like this now. It's not going to accept it because it's higher than what bytes can contain. So I'm going to make it 4, things like that. So that is for bytes. Let's go back to our slide. Use short. So I want you to practice all this and come up with something. Then integers are fine for dealing with whole numbers, but of little use when there are numbers after decimal point. So that is, you can't declare 7.65 as integer. You are programmatically wrong because they are not. So that comes up with something called floats. Whereas floats, you can use decimal numbers, but limited to 6 to 7 digits. So you can't use 200 times 5.6, 200.5.67 up to 7 digits, things like that. So you can't do that. So rather, you use double. Double has higher capacity than float. Then the last but not the least is decimal. Decimal is like the overall. If you are dealing with computation, if you're dealing with accounting, it is essential you use decimal because of long calculation. So basically, both integer and floating point families of C# variable types have some limitations. Like if you're dealing with accuracy, you need to use decimal point. Okay, this is how to declare decimal points. Let's go back to our code, and to declare decimal, just write decimal. That's my decimal. You can use anything. Does not necessarily have to be my decimal. Can account balance equals 26 to. Now you may be tempted to do it like this, right? Which is wrong. You can't add it like this. Now what you need to do is just write it the way it is, but make sure you don't maybe 45,000, 450,000. 0.736. So if you're dealing with decimal, you can, this is trying to tell you that, oh, this is just like a double. Instead of using decimal, just store inside double. So I'm going to store it, like you can use the double for that. You don't necessarily have to. But one thing that you need to do is that my double decimal. So to use decimal, you can store up to 20 digits. Decimal, my decimal equals, just store up to 20 digits like this. See, up to 20. Let's change this to the maximum is 2. Yeah, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 digits. Like, I don't know, is this quadrillion or something? I don't know this. So decimal can store as high as this, and of course you can store integer or double on this. So that is how to use the decimal. Let's hop over to a slide and continue. Now the next thing we need to talk about is Boolean. Boolean is like a type of variables that is either true or false. Like this example, loop completed, false. You are a genius, true. To declare it, I'll go to my browser, just write bool, you are a genius. It can either be true or false. That is how to declare a genius. And if you don't declare it, if you make it just like this, it's going to be false by default. Okay, but it is essential to initiate it. So I'm going to make it true. Over to our browser. The next one I want to talk about is character. Character is more or less like you are dealing with letter or A, B, C, D, symbol, and all that. So for us to deal with character, you write car, my letter, equals to T or $sign. Now if you are writing character, notice one thing. We've not been using any quotes here. You just write it directly. Now if you are writing character, it has to be in a single quote. It has to be like this. This is a character. This is a character. This is a character. This G is a character. And you can use dollar, hash, symbol, art, and all that. These are all character. But if you use double quotes, it's not going to work because it will be treated as string. I'm going to be talking about string later. This is a character now. And if you don't use any quote, it's going to give you error. But if you are dealing with numbers, you don't have to put quotes. So next is string. Dealing with string is very, very important. If you want to form words or sentences, you need to use string. Now to declare a string, you just write string, my string. It can be anything. It can be C# string. Don't forget, I can't write it like this because of variables. I can't write it like this, C#. It's not gonna work. Okay, that's why I had to spell it out. Can I say this is my string. So string can contain numbers and values and all that. You may be tempted to ask why, instead of why, since string can contain numbers and value and everything, so string can contain my string value is this, can even add as many as possible and to work. You may be tempted to be thinking, let me use string for everything. No. Suppose you want to add two numbers together. Let's say you want to add string value number 1 equals 2 and string, integer. Okay, let's use string number 2 equals 2. Now string total equals 1 plus, let's make it this 2. Okay, 1 plus 2. Now if you run this code now, instead of if you do it like this, you are going to get 22. Now maybe we should just check it out. Let's check it out. I'm going to add a label here. I'm going to call this label total label, total label, so that this label will display my result. So I'm going to say total label dot test, that is display the, let me use this, the value of 2 plus 2, or the value of 2 plus 2 equals. So I'm going to say total here. I've added it together. Now by the time you do this, and let's build our application, I just want to show you what we're going to get at the end of it all. And I'm going to run this app. Let me run it. View in browser. Okay, I will hop over to this submit button. Don't forget I wrote this, I added this image the other time. Now if you see now the value of 2 plus 2 equals 22. More reason you can use string, so it has to be integer. Okay, of course there's a way around it. You can actually convert this to integer. So when you convert it to integer, you can use it and to be 4, but we'll be dealing with that later. So for conversion, you can say I want this. Don't notice that this is string, so I want it to be, I can now say convert. That you can use int.parse, you can use convert, but I want to use convert to integer this time around. So I will pass, it's like a function that will pass whatever you put there to integer. So I'm going to say convert to integer and add it, and this got, but it's telling you now, Visual Studio is telling you that, bros, you cannot convert int to integer to string except you do explicit conversion. That is, this cannot be added to this because integer is different. It will cause a lot of error. Now suppose I want to change this one to 2t. Now it's not going to work. That is why it's telling you that this could be character. 2t is not an integer. So but for the sake of this program, I will now add, I can add a bracket and now to convert everything. After conversion, convert everything to string and it will work. So I'm going to build the application now, and go back to a browser and refresh the page. I have 4. So we have 4. Thank you. See you in the next class.